He had no name, no collar, no warmth, just a rusted chain digging into his neck and a frozen pine tree for company. The snow fell thick and merciless that winter in Silver Pines, blanketing the forest in silence so heavy it felt like grief made visible. Wind howled through the trees like ghosts looking for their way home, and somewhere, tucked beneath the twisted trunk of a half-fallen pine, lay a creature the world had forgotten. He was dying. Ribs protruded beneath his dirt-matted coat. One ear was torn and bloodied, his muzzle dusted with frost, but his eyes, clouded yes, still held something fierce, something waiting. Days passed. No one came. Until an 8-year-old boy named Noah wandered off the trail that cold December afternoon, drawn by a sound the forest shouldn't have made. A bark. Weak. Strained. Barely a whisper beneath the wind. Noah Carter hadn't meant to be there. He'd slipped off the school bus unnoticed, pulled by something he couldn't explain. Grief does that to a child. It bends the world around them, changes the rules. His father had died earlier that year in a search and rescue accident, and, ever since, silence had become his constant companion. He barely spoke, barely smiled, just existed, but that sound, it pierced through him. He followed it. Through snowdrifts and frost-covered branches, boots crunching softly beneath him. Every step deeper into the forest was a step away from the sorrow he'd been carrying. Then, he saw it, a German shepherd, large, once powerful, but now barely more than bones and willpower, chained cruelly to a tree, too weak to whine, too proud to beg. Their eyes met, and in that frozen second, something passed between them. Not fear, not pity, but recognition. Both had been left behind. Both had scars too deep for anyone to see. Noah didn't speak. He crouched slowly, his mittened hand reaching forward. The dog didn't flinch, didn't growl, just watched. Noah tried. To tug the chain, it held, rusted, merciless. He had nothing but a granola bar in his pocket and a promise. "I'll come back," he whispered, pressing his hand to the dog's chest. "I promise." Then he ran, back through the snow, back across the forest line, back toward a home that had felt empty for so long. But this time he wasn't just a boy running from grief. He was running for something, and behind him, in the freezing woods, a soldier lay waiting, silent, still, but no longer forgotten. Snow crunched beneath his boots as Noah sprinted through the trees, lungs burning, arms flailing for balance. He tripped once, landing hard on his knees, but he didn't stop. His mind replayed the image over and over. The chain, the frost-bitten fur, those eyes watching him with silent plea. When he reached the edge of the property line, he didn't go to the house. He darted toward the old shed behind the barn, because that's where his grandfather would be. Walter Carter didn't need to ask questions when the boy burst in. He didn't shout or hesitate. He just turned slowly, snow dusting his broad shoulders, eyes steady behind wire-rimmed glasses. At 72, Walter still moved like a man born to the wild. His plaid coat was patched at the elbows, his leather gloves creased with years of hard winters. "There's a dog," Noah panted. "He's chained, bleeding, he's gonna die." Walter blinked once. Then, without a word, he reached for a pair of heavy bolt cutters hanging on the pegboard. "Lead the way," Noah did. Back into the cold, back into the woods that had taken so much from their family. The wind had picked up again, curling through the trees like something alive. But the boy didn't slow, neither did Walter. When they reached the fallen pine, Walter stopped. For a long moment, he just looked at the dog, at the scarring on its neck, the raw skin beneath the chain, the haunted look in its amber eyes. "He's a K9, Walter said quietly. "You can tell by the way he waits, calm, listening. He's trained." Noah watched his grandfather crouch, positioning the bolt. "Cutters around the thickest link." "Easy now, boy," Walter murmured. "This might hurt." With a grunt and one sharp snap, the chain broke. The metal fell into the snow with a dull clink. The dog didn't move at first, then slowly it rose, legs shaking, sides heaving, and took one step toward freedom. Before collapsing into Noah's arms, the boy didn't flinch. He held the dog tight, cheek pressed to matted fur. "We'll call him Kodiak," Noah whispered. "That was Dad's favorite bear." Walter nodded once. "Fitting." They made their way back through the snow, man, boy, and broken dog. At the house, Lisa Carter was just pulling into the drive, fresh from a 12-hour shift at the Silver Pines Clinic. She climbed out of her car and paused. Her son was walking toward the porch, guiding an injured German shepherd that barely had the strength to stand. "Noah," she called. "What is that?" Walter emerged behind him. "Rescue," he said simply. "He found him." Lisa didn't ask more. Years in emergency care had trained her hands to move faster than her thoughts. She knelt beside the dog, running, fingers along his flank. "He's freezing," she said. "We need to warm him now." Inside, towels were fetched, blankets piled high. The fireplace was stirred to life with fresh kindling and pine wood. Kodiak was settled gently on a patchwork quilt near the hearth. Lisa examined his wounds carefully. Frostbite on the ears, abrasions on the legs, a swollen joint, and a scar, a clean one. "Not from today," she said, frowning. "This was surgical, precise." Walter's gaze didn't leave the dog. "This one's seen things." As night fell over Silver Pines, something strange happened. The Carter home, so long filled with grief, began to shift. It was subtle at first. Just the way Noah sat beside the dog, hand resting lightly against its fur, not flinching when Kodiak stirred. Or the way Lisa watched her son, how her eyes softened every time she saw him speak. Kodiak didn't growl, didn't bark. He just breathed, slow and steady, as if trying to match the rhythm of the home around him. "He hasn't made a sound," Lisa murmured. "That's not normal. He's injured, scared, in pain, and yet he's calm." Walter stepped closer and crouched again, this time eye to eye with the dog. "He's more than calm," he said. "He's trained. Watch his ears." As the wood popped in the fireplace, Kodiak's ears twitched toward the sound. He didn't move, just acknowledged it. Lisa's brow furrowed. "You think he's military?" Walter nodded. "I've seen eyes like that before, and soldiers, they don't bark unless they have to." Noah's voice was small but sure. "Can he stay?" Lisa hesitated. "Honey, we don't know where he came from. There could be a report out." "There isn't," Walter cut in. "I'll check tomorrow. But if this dog belonged to a unit, someone should have been looking for him by now." Lisa glanced down. Kodiak's eyes met hers, unwavering. "At least until he heals," she said at last. "But not in your room. And not in here." Noah's shoulders fell slightly, but Walter offered a solution. "The old shed out back. We'll clean it. The boy needs a project, and the dog, he needs space." Lisa didn't argue. She simply nodded, knowing the look in her father-in-law's eyes meant he wouldn't be swayed. That night, Noah barely slept. He lay beside Kodiak until long past midnight, watching the rise and fall of the dog's chest, feeling something shift inside himself. Not just relief, not just companionship, but purpose. In the silence of that winter night, something unspoken passed between them. Two souls who'd been broken, but who had just found the first thread of healing. The next morning broke slowly over Silver Pines. The snow had thickened overnight, cloaking everything in hushed white silence. Even the birds seemed unwilling to disturb the stillness. But in the back of the Carter property, behind the barn and beside the tree line, there was movement. Noah stood beside Walter, sleeves rolled twice over his two long arms, broom in hand. His breath fogged the cold air as he swept out the old shed, once a field prep cabin used by his father. The place smelled of pine sap and rust, its wooden walls lined with cobwebs and memories. Lanterns hung from hooks. Climbing gear sat forgotten in the corners. And the dust, thick, undisturbed for years, lifted slowly into the slanted light like ghosts. Walter worked steadily beside him, tightening the door hinges, shaking out moth-eaten blankets, reinforcing the small stove in the corner that hadn't been used in years. Neither said much. They didn't need to. When they were done, Lisa arrived with a thick wool blanket, a dented metal bowl, and a plate of cooked chicken from the night before. Kodiak followed slowly, cautious but steady, nose twitching at the familiar smells. He entered the shed and paused, scanning the space the way soldiers check a new perimeter. Then, satisfied, he lay down on the patch of blanket near the stove, curling his body slowly, almost reverently. Noah crouched beside him. "It's not much," he said, "but it's yours." While Walter stepped outside to split wood, Noah explored. In the far corner of the shed, behind an old duffel bag and a stack of water-damaged trail maps, he found a rusted metal box labeled field logs. The clips were stiff with age, but they opened with effort. Inside, notebooks, dozens. Some water-stained, others brittle with time. But one stood out, a leather-bound journal, the cover worn smooth by use. In the bottom right corner, faint but unmistakable, David Carter, his father. Noah sat cross-legged on the floor, heart pounding, and opened it. The pages were filled with blocky, precise handwriting. Notes on weather, trail conditions, wildlife, sightings, drawings of terrain, lists of supplies. Then midway through the third entry, a line made his breath catch. Training with K9 Sergeant Kodiak. Excellent tracking. Needs patience work. Responds best to quiet tone and hand signals. Saved us an hour today by picking up the elk trail. Noah froze. He read it again. Then again. Kodiak. The same name. The same breed. The same quiet strength. His fingers gripped the page as if holding it tighter might keep the truth from slipping through. "You knew my dad," he whispered. Kodiak didn't move, but his ears shifted, as if he'd heard the name, as if he remembered. Walter returned, brushing snow from his shoulders. "Find something?" Noah turned the journal toward him. "Look." The old man squinted, adjusting his glasses. His brow furrowed deeply. "Well, I'll be damned," he muttered. "Your father wrote about Kodiak. This Kodiak." He called him. "Sergeant?" He lowered the journal slowly, staring at the dog with new gravity. "That's not a name you give lightly, especially not in the field." Noah sat beside Kodiak, his shoulder pressed gently against the dog's side. "He's not just some stray. He came back for a reason." Later that afternoon, Lisa stepped into the shed carrying a thermos of warm broth and a plate of biscuits. She paused at the threshold, caught by the sight of her son curled beside the wounded dog, a journal lying open between them. She knelt next to Kodiak, setting down the food. Her hand reached out instinctively, fingers brushing through the coarse fur. Kodiak leaned into her touch, just slightly, but enough. "You knew David, didn't you?" she said softly. "I can see it." The fire in the small stove crackled, gently, casting a soft amber glow across the shed's walls. Outside, the wind stirred the pines, carrying whispers through the trees. But inside there was warmth, not just from blankets or broth, but from something deeper, from memory, from presence, from connection. Kodiak closed his eyes for the first time since arriving. Noah watched him quietly, a small, tired smile tugging at the corners of his lips. It wasn't wide, it wasn't loud, but it was real. That night the wind returned, sharp, bitter, unrelenting. Lisa knelt beside Kodiak once more, this time with her full medkit. She brought a flashlight, a stethoscope, and a satchel filled with antiseptic and gauze. She moved, with gentle precision, the way someone trained to handle both trauma and tenderness. As she examined the dog, her fingers brushed a scar, one she hadn't noticed before. Left shoulder, parallel to the muscle, clean, healed. She frowned, brushing the fur aside. "That's a surgical line," she murmured. "Not an injury. This was done intentionally." Kodiak didn't flinch. He just looked at her, calm, steady, watching. Lisa glanced over her shoulder. Noah sat a few feet away, hunched over the open journal. She hesitated. Honey, I think this dog had a microchip, one that was removed. Noah looked up. What does that mean? It means, Lisa said quietly, someone didn't want him to be traced. She didn't say the rest out loud, but it echoed in her mind, and that someone had training. Later, as Lisa returned to the clinic for her evening shift, Noah stayed behind. He waited until Walter was chopping wood near the barn, then slipped back into the house. He knew his mother's laptop password. It was her old badge number from her trauma rotation in Denver. He logged in, typed, Sergeant Kodiak K9 Unit Denver. The first few results were useless. Dog training blogs, articles about K9 units, and obedient schools. Then, on the second page, he saw it. A headline small and almost forgotten. MIA. Tactical K9 vanishes during operation. Noah clicked. The article was dated 2 years ago. It described a covert mission near Pike National Forest. The handler, a decorated officer, had died during the operation. The dog, a German shepherd named Sergeant Kodiak, had gone missing in ENB's action, presumed dead. No body recovered, no follow-up issued, no investigation, just silence. Noah stared at the grainy image of a younger Kodiak, coat darker, eyes clearer. But it was him. It was undeniably him. They left you behind, Noah whispered. But you came back. Outside, Kodiak stirred in the shed. The snow fell, heavier now, muting the world around them. But inside one boy's heart, something was waking up. The snow outside the Carter shed had crusted into a thin layer of ice, reflecting the pale morning sun like broken glass. But inside, the air was thick with questions. Kodiak had barely moved since the night before, except to shift closer when Noah sat down with the journal. His ears twitched occasionally, reacting to small sounds. A creak in the floorboards, a branch tapping the roof. His instincts were sharp, even in rest. Lisa returned from the clinic with less color in her face than she'd left with. She looked tired in a way that didn't come from working late. It came from dread, from too many puzzle pieces clicking, into a picture you didn't want to see. She entered the shed with purpose, a flashlight in one hand and a small metal kit in the other. She sat beside Kodiak and gently checked his leg again. But it wasn't the swollen joint or the healing scabs that caught her attention this time. It was the scar, the clean surgical line across his left shoulder. Something military, something clinical, something deliberate. She brushed his fur aside again. You didn't just get lost, she whispered. Someone removed your chip. Kodiak didn't growl. He didn't even blink. He just looked at her, calm and still. Lisa's voice was quiet but firm. That's what scares me. Later that day, while Lisa returned to the clinic, Noah slipped into the house. He had printed the article, Missing in Action, Tactical K9 Vanishes During Operation, and now he needed someone to believe it too. Walter was chopping wood near the barn when Noah approached. He didn't say anything at first, just handed over the paper. Walter scanned the page in silence. His eyes narrowed. This confirms what I suspected, he muttered. If this dog belonged to Echo Unit and his handler died, then someone made sure he wouldn't be found. Noah looked up. Why would they do that? Walter didn't answer right away. He turned the page over in his hand, like he was weighing more than just the ink. Because sometimes the wrong dog remembers the right things. That evening, during dinner, the article lay folded beside Walter's plate. Lisa read it once, then again, her brow furrowed deeper each time. This means he was trained, deployed, trusted, she said, glancing toward Kodiak curled under the table. And someone tried to erase him. Walter nodded grimly. Then we keep him safe. But just as they started to breathe again, Silver Pines stirred, with news of its own. Across town in the cramped wood-paneled town hall, a meeting was taking place. Sheriff Mason Reeves stood at the front, a thick folder in one hand and a printed map in the other. The room was packed. Farmers, teachers, shop owners, many still in boots and scarves. "We've had 3 separate reports in the last 2 weeks," Reeves said, tapping the folder. "Tracks in the North Woods. No vehicle nearby. No hikers. Registered, someone's walking out there, alone. Off trail, too far from the logging roads to be accident." Murmurs spread through the room like a draft. Judith Marlowe, the town librarian and longtime head of the community watch, raised her hand. "Has anyone checked the old fire road past Dry Creek?" Reeves nodded. "We will, but whoever's moving out there, they're careful. No fire pits, no litter. They know how to disappear." He didn't mention it out loud, but one of the report maps showed the direction of movement. Southeast, toward the Carter property line. Back at home, Noah had returned to the shed with a flashlight and a packet of jerky. Kodiak greeted him with a slow tail wag, but something was off. The dog was alert. Too alert. Ears perked, nose twitching like it had caught something. Not just memory, but presence. "I found your story," Noah said softly, sitting cross-legged. "You were a soldier. They forgot you. But I won't." Kodiak leaned forward and pressed his forehead into the boy's shoulder. No bark, no sound, just that weight, that knowing, and somewhere, unseen beyond the trees, someone was watching. Behind the Carter property, hidden in a thicket of spruce trees, a figure crouched low. He wore a camouflage winter coat and heavy boots. His face was half hidden by a scarf pulled up to his eyes, which stared, narrowed, calculating. In his gloved hands, he held a small black camera. The lens was cracked, but it worked. He didn't move, didn't make a sound. He just watched as the boy played with the dog, unaware that his laughter echoed through trees where secrets once rotted. Then Kodiak stopped. His body stiffened. His ears flicked toward the trees. Then, a low growl. Soft, guttural, deadly. Noah froze. "What is it, boy?" Kodiak stepped in front of him, tail low, body tense. Then came the bark, sharp and explosive. It split the silence like a warning shot. The man in the woods ducked and ran. "No, Kodiak, wait." Noah shouted, but it was too late. The dog surged forward like thunder, snow exploding behind him as he raced toward the trees. Noah scrambled after him, stopping at the fence line just in time to see Kodiak return. The stranger was gone, vanished into the forest. But the dog carried something in his mouth, a strip of cloth. Noah took it gently. His fingers trembled. It wasn't just cloth. It was a scarf, dark green, coarse, faded, and stamped on it, barely visible beneath worn ink. A pine tree crossed by an axe. Beneath that, Ironwood Collective. Noah stared at the emblem, heart pounding. Who are they? That night at the dinner table, the scarf lay between Lisa and Walter like a ticking clock. Walter examined it under the lamplight, jaw tight. "I haven't seen this in years," he muttered. "It's a symbol. Illegal loggers. They operated deep in the Rockies a while back. Rogue contractors, cut through protected zones and disappeared. They weren't just breaking rules, they were ghosts." Lisa's hands tightened. "I thought they were arrested. They vanished before we could catch them. I always suspected someone tipped them off. Someone inside." Kodiak lay under the table, silent but alert, his eyes never leaving the doorway. Lisa stood suddenly and walked into her bedroom. She returned with a small white envelope. She placed it on the table. Noah recognized it. It had arrived that morning. Inside, a single sheet of paper. No return address, no signature, just one line. "Keep your son out of what doesn't concern him." Silence fell like a stone. Lisa's voice was calm but cold. "They know about Kodiak, about us." Walter folded the note. "Then they'll expect us to back off." Lisa shook her head. "Not this time." The wind howled through the trees the next morning, stirring the branches like restless hands. But Walter Carter was already awake. He stood at the edge of the tree line behind the Carter house, leaning on the walking stick he always carried when heading into the woods. Noah stood beside him, bundled in a coat too big for his frame. The sleeves rolled up twice and still grazing his knuckles. Kodiak stayed close, his ears twitching at every sound. "We shouldn't go too far," Noah said, glancing behind them. "What if Mom notices?" "She won't," Walter replied. "Told her we're clearing the snow by the fence line." He gestured to the narrow path that ran deeper into the woods. Snow lay untouched on either side, but in the center. Boot prints, not deep like a hiker's, not wide like a hunter's, clean, deliberate, fresh. Kodiak sniffed at them, his hackles raised, but he made no sound. He was following something, someone. They moved deeper into the trees. The forest swallowed. Sound made even the crunch of boots on snow sound distant, unreal. Walter paused now and then to crouch and study the tracks. Long strides, flat heel patterns. "Someone trained," he murmured. "Knows how to move without dragging weight. Could be military. Could be someone who used to be." Noah didn't speak. He just followed silently, Kodiak between them like a sentinel. Then they saw it. Half hidden by evergreens up the slope sat a one-room cabin. Weather-beaten, abandoned, but not forgotten. The boards were gray with age. The windows dark. A rusted stovepipe jutted from the roof, long since cold. It looked like something from another lifetime, until they stepped inside. The air was brittle, still. Along one wall were broken crates and an old tarp, stained and frozen to the floor. Kodiak sniffed the edges, then stopped, body tense. His nose hovered near a section of wall. Noah crouched beside him, brushing back straw and debris. Then he felt it. Cold metal, half buried. He pulled. It was a collar, half torn. The nylon faded, the buckle bent, but still attached was a single tag. K9 Unit Echo. Walter took it from him slowly, eyes scanning every scratch. "Echo Unit," he whispered. "This proves it. He was here, and whoever left him didn't expect him to be found." Noah's hand clenched the torn fabric. "Why would someone do that?" Walter didn't answer right away. He looked toward the trees. "You remember how I said I was forced into retirement?" he asked. Noah nodded. "It wasn't just age," Walter said. 10 years ago, I stood in front of the county board and tried to block a series of development permits. They would have opened the North Woods to private logging companies. I had everything: species reports, safety maps, erosion risks. They ignored all of it. His voice hardened. Then someone filed a false report, said I was mentally unfit for duty. Used your grandma's death as proof I'd lost focus. That's how they shut me down. "That's not fair," Noah said. "No," Walter agreed. "But it's common." They stood in silence for a moment, until Kodiak stepped outside. His posture was stiff, ears up, tail low. He was listening. "They're still using this area," Walter muttered, "and they don't want anyone finding out." Back at the house, Lisa stood at the kitchen window, rinsing out a thermos under hot water. The snow outside had turned to mist, clinging to the fence posts and trees like fog. No boots by the back door. No Walter's coat. Noah's room. Empty. Her stomach twisted. She picked up the phone and dialed. At the sheriff's office, Mason Reeves was reviewing wildlife cam footage. One image caught his eye. Grainy, dark, but clear enough. A figure wrapped in a heavy coat walking south, toward Carterland. The phone rang. "Reeves," he answered. "It's Lisa," came the voice on the other end. "Noah and Walter. They're gone. I think they're in the woods." Mason stood immediately. "I'll look into it. You did right calling me." In the forest, Walter knelt beside a patch of disturbed snow. "Look at this," he said. Noah stepped closer. Blood dry, dark, frozen. "That's Kodiak's," Walter said. "Older than yesterday, not from today." Noah looked confused. "How? Can you tell?" Walter pointed to a single tan hair clinging to a wood splinter nearby. "Because I know how this dog sheds." Kodiak moved ahead, sniffing low. Then he stopped. His paw lifted. His nose pointed toward a tree. He barked once, sharp, clean, direct. At the base of the tree, something trailed beneath the snow. Noah knelt and tugged. It was rope. Thick, frayed, knotted into a loop, one end torn. They tied him here, Noah whispered. Like bait. Walter's eyes darkened. But for who? They turned back toward the house, Kodiak leading the way. In the backyard, Noah tossed a rubber ball across the snow. Kodiak, still limping slightly but stronger each day, darted forward and caught it in midair. Noah laughed, really laughed, for the first time in months. But just beyond the fence line, hidden in the shadows of spruce trees, someone watched, a man, wrapped in a camo coat, scarf pulled high, eyes narrowed. He held a cracked lens camera. Recording. Kodiak froze mid-play, his body stiffened, then a low growl. Noah turned. What is it, boy? Kodiak stepped in front of him. Teeth bared, ears forward, he barked once, violent, loud. The man bolted. Kodiak, wait! Noah yelled. The dog gave chase but returned minutes later, something clenched in his jaws. A torn strip of cloth. Rough. Dark green. Stamped faintly with a pine and axe, Ironwood Collective. That night the scarf lay on the dinner table like a curse. Walter examined it silently. They were ghosts, he said. Illegal loggers. Used to operate in the Rockies, we could never prove anything. They moved fast, disappeared faster. I always thought someone on the inside tipped them off. Lisa stood suddenly and walked to her room. When she returned, she carried a plain white envelope. She opened it. Noah's breath caught. Inside, one line, typed in black. Keep your son out of what doesn't concern him. Lisa's voice trembled. They know about Kodiak, about the cabin, about us. Walter folded the note. His expression didn't change. Then they'll expect fear. Lisa turned to him. This is my son. I won't bury another man in this family. Walter met her gaze. Then we finish what David started. The sun returned to Silver Pines 3 days after Boone's arrest. It melted the jagged ice from rooftops, turned snowbanks into rivers that trickled through the woods. The sky, once choked with gray storm clouds, now stretched wide in a brilliant blue over the mountains, like the town was finally exhaling after holding its breath for far too long. In the town square, folding chairs filled quickly. The community hall had been decorated with pine boughs and faded flags, strung with strands of white lights that swayed gently in the warming breeze. There was no parade, no confetti, just people, gathered not for spectacle but for something deeper, something they hadn't even realized they'd lost. Trust. Noah stood near the side entrance, tugging at the sleeves of his sweater. His flannel shirt, the one his father had given him the Christmas before he died, was tucked neatly beneath his jacket. His hair had been combed, though one stubborn cowlick refused to lie flat. Beside him, Kodiak sat tall and still, wearing a new navy blue harness. On the side, stitched carefully in gold thread, K9 Echo Unit. Retired, his ears flicked once, watching the room, always watching. Lisa crouched behind them, her hand on Noah's shoulder. You ready? The boy nodded. I think Kodiak is. Then, so are you, she whispered. At the front of the room, Sheriff Mason Reeves stepped to the microphone. His dress uniform gleamed with polished silver, but there was wear in his posture, honest wear. The kind that comes from decades of standing guard over a place that doesn't always make it easy. We've come together today, he began. Not only to honor bravery, but to rebuild. Because bravery isn't just about bullets or badges. Sometimes it's about listening when others don't, speaking up when it's easier to stay quiet, and believing even when the world doesn't. He gestured to the front row. Walter Carter, once pushed out for doing the right thing, now returns as our official advisor to the newly reinstated Echo K9 task force. Walter stood briefly, just enough. The room applauded. Lisa Carter, nurse, mother truth-teller, who fought for her family and for the soul of this town. Lisa nodded softly from her seat. And finally, Reeves said, his voice lowering, We honor a boy who followed a bark into the forest and found a soldier. A boy who reminded us that courage doesn't come from age, but from love. He extended a hand. Noah stepped forward, Kodiak at his side. Reeves knelt and opened a velvet box. Inside, a silver medallion engraved with a star and paw print. "Sergeant Kodiak," Reeves said, fastening the medal to the dog's harness. "Welcome home." The crowd stood, but even in the applause, in the cheers, and the cameras, Kodiak didn't move. He stayed beside the boy, calm, steady, watching. And Noah, his hand resting on that scarred fur, smiled. Not because it was over, but because something new had begun.